Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and today's question comes from a previous video I'd made on the 4 different subtypes of sadistic personality, and asks if I would look a bit closer at some of the common characteristics and some of the differences in the subtypes. Today I'm going to be looking at explosive sadism. So if you like this video, if you find it useful or helpful or interesting, please consider subscribing to my channel. But just as a reminder, this video is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional, nor is it a tool to be used to diagnose someone. Now, sadism could be characterized by the desire to hurt others. Now, whether that's verbally or physically, it's specifically for self-pleasure and for gratification. People with sadistic traits generally have a desire to dominate and control others through inflicting pain and humiliation. And according to Theodore Millan, there are 4 subtypes of sadism. There's spineless sadism, there's tyrannical sadism, there's enforcing sadism, and the topic for today's video, explosive sadism. Sadism can take many forms, but unlike someone who's maybe angry, bitter, resentful, wants some kind of revenge or justice around something, that generally passes. With sadism, what we often see is a pleasure when inflicting pain. There is an intention there. There's also a lack of regret and taking no responsibility for the consequences of their behavior. And some of the beliefs behind sadistic behavior include just thinking it's okay to hurt others, fantasizing, even cherishing the thought of others being in pain, whether they have caused it or not. They like to humiliate others to keep them in line and can bully others in many different ways to disempower them. And sadism can be a component or can co-occur with other personality disorders such as antisocial personality, narcissistic personality. It can be particularly prevalent in factor 1 psychopathy. And explosive sadism, though not every time, there are always exceptions, exhibits quite a few characteristics with borderline personalities. With borderline personality, however, sometimes what we see is, although there's a difficulty being able to regulate emotions and behaviors, there can still be a regret afterwards. So what are the common behaviors and traits associated with explosive sadism? Well, firstly, there can be hypersensitivity to betrayal. Now, that betrayal doesn't necessarily mean their partner has cheated, or maybe a friend or a colleague reneges on a promise or a commitment. Quite often it's a perceived betrayal, such as maybe you're showing too much confidence, or you weren't thinking of me whenever you chose that. You were talking to someone without my overseeing it, without my consent. Or it could be over something innocuous, like perhaps someone tells a joke or tells a story about him that isn't that flattering. It doesn't really matter whether it's the truth or not, even if it's harmless. The explosive sadist might not necessarily immediately lash out, and if they do, not necessarily violently, but they will shut that down somehow by maybe humiliating the person who's talking. Or they may keep it for later on, then punish them with a vengeance. They, if you will, they've had time to brood over this. And I think what we see there is the explosion is not necessarily impulsive as we would often see with borderline. It's more deliberate, it's more calculated. An example of it being more deliberate and calculated could be that explosive rage just switches off like that, perhaps as soon as someone else walks into the room. So it can be a deliberate tactic to instill fear. The victim is often terrified of not doing or saying anything that might bring about that cruelty. There could be a frustration around hopelessness. This could be wanting to punish others, even those closest to them, for being perhaps more accomplished somehow, or perhaps even just feeling happy. Now, I think with quiet borderline personality, what we can see is this frustration, this sense of hopelessness, and the need to punish is often turned inwards rather than manifesting itself externally. Although it can manifest itself externally, sometimes perhaps more in passive-aggressive ways. Then there's using aggression to release piled up feelings of frustration and humiliation. In some cases, this can be misdirected. For example, that person may have had a hard day at work. Maybe the boss was giving them a hard time. Now, it doesn't really matter if maybe they weren't doing their job or they'd been acting inappropriately. They're feeling disempowered, so it's perhaps the partner, the kids, the family pet that ends up getting punished, that ends up getting threatened, that ends up being abused either verbally or physically. That need to regain a sense of control and power being taken out on others. Now, an example of this could be frustration, maybe whenever, say, a friend or a partner maybe wants to learn a new skill, or maybe get a better job, or apply for a promotion. Whatever it happens to be, the sadist may belittle this with things like, what the hell would you do that for? Sure, you're no good at that. You'll only fail. You're wasting your time. But if that friend or that partner perseveres, they begin to grow, develop, and even just enjoy what they're doing. What we see is a building frustration. The sadistic person is losing control. They may try to sabotage them somehow, particularly when they see their belittling and their scorn isn't working. It gets to the point where there's just an explosion, there's an outrage, in order to try and disempower and humiliate the target, to try and keep them in line. Who the hell do you think you are? Now again, that could be verbal, it could be physical, it could be emotional, there could be the withholding of resources, affection, anything at all to hurt that person. And I think this would be quite common with narcissistic personality disorder, in the sense that the person is envious of their target, and envying others, or the belief that others should envy them, is actually one of the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder as set out in DSM-5. And lastly, they explode and resort to physical violence after reaching their limit. And again, that limit doesn't have to be too much. It could be something as simple as perhaps the wrong answer to a question, to an evening's interaction that didn't go well, blaming someone else whenever things don't go their way, whenever things go wrong. And the physical violence could be from a slap in the face, destruction of property, there could be sexual assault, pinning someone down while screaming at them, blocking their exit to a room as they're screaming at them, even threatening or attacking someone who may be of some kind of help or support to their victim. But regardless of how it manifests itself, the explosive sadist can be volatile and unpredictable. It can be impulsive, but it can also be opportunistic as well as calculated. So that's a brief outline of explosive sadism. As always, if there's anything I've missed, by all means, please feel free to use the comment box below. There are some interesting conversations starting around these videos. If you find this video useful or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. And until next time, thanks for watching.